Good afternoon, grade 11s. Welcome to today's life orientation lesson. Good afternoon, grade 11. Sorry for the technical problems. Welcome to today's life orientation lesson. My name is Buleng Niziga and I am your LO teacher for the duration of the lockdown. On the screen, you can see my email account, my email address. It is lizika@yahoo.com. Lizika is my surname, Buleng is my name in small letters, and at yahoo.com. That is where you can contact me if you want to know anything with regards to the subject LO. So you're welcome to contact me at that email address. Now, what we were doing last week, Friday, that was the last time I saw you, was chapter 11, unit 1. And today we're going to deal with chapter 11, unit 2, and that is factors that impact negatively on lifestyle choices. So what you need to know for today is that you must know the factors that impact negatively on lifestyle choices. Now we can begin with today's lesson. What are the factors that impact negatively on your lifestyle choices? So there are positive and negative factors that can influence your lifestyle choices. Culture can impact your lifestyle choices. Culture is how you grew up. It's what your parents teach you. It's the rules and regulations. Culture is something like when you're born, what name do they give you? It might mean something, and maybe you might follow up with what your name means. So, and then religion, for instance, Christianity has a lot of rules and regulations. For instance, in Christianity, we'll have rules like the 10 Commandments that have like love your neighbor as you love yourself. That is encouraging you to love your neighbors and love yourself. Two rules like thou shalt not steal. That would be a good rule for even in our country. That would lessen crime if we all listen to that rule. And then listening to your parents, like honor your mother and your father so that you may have long lives. So this encourages you to respect your parents. So listening to the Bible or Christianity might influence your lifestyle choices in a positive way. And belief systems provide us with the rules by which we are expected to behave. So if you use, for example, Christianity to shape your values and your norms, then you will be impacted or encouraged to behave in a positive manner, and thus having an impact on your lifestyle, and it will affect how you live your life. So when you make choices that go against your religion or principles and values, you may feel uncomfortable with the decision afterwards. So if, for example, we're busy using Christianity, if you subscribe to rules like the 10 Commandments, when you go against it, you'll feel as if you haven't lived up to your norms and values, and you know that you've made a decision that actually goes against what you believe in and what you stand for. So basically, what you'll do is you'll do your best in order to be able to do as your religion says, and that will have a positive impact on your life because it's probably something positive and it's something that is encouraging. This is the same with going against your personal values. In this way, you allow a negative factor to influence your behavior. So if you steal, then you are allowing a negative factor to influence your behavior. If you kill, you are also allowing a negative factor to influence your behavior. Not respecting your parents, not loving yourself, that is also a negative factor that will influence your behavior. And then we're going to look at a number of things that can affect your personal behavior or your lifestyle. And the first one is accidents, unsafe attitudes about alcohol consumption, and unsafe behavior such as drinking alcohol and driving result in road accidents. Now, we all believe different things about driving and how you should drive. Some people drive under the influence of alcohol, which is bad because research has shown that when you drink alcohol, it alters your behavior. It may mean that you more likely to have slower reflexes. It affects your motor system. So you're most likely to not react in a way on the road that you would normally act if you were sober. And sometimes when people are drunk, they get involved in road rage, meaning they'll say things or they'll swear or they'll motion with their hands and make hand signs that aren't proper. So if you don't drink, then you're most likely to think in a sober manner and to respect other people on the road. So alcohol and the abuse of substances is an unsafe practice, and it's something that is more likely to influence your behavior in a negative way. Second bullet point, an unsafe environment created by heavy rain, the lack of knowledge about floods, and the lack of skill in swimming often lead to drowning accidents. Most driving, drowning, and flash flood accidents can be prevented. So this is another type of way that your behavior can be influenced in a negative way. So this involves you not knowing what to do or not having the skill or the knowledge of how to behave in certain areas. So for instance, in a heavy rain, you might not know how to drive, so you might have more experience driving or go for advanced lessons. And then lack of knowledge about floods, what you have to do, maybe evacuating on time and things like that. Then lack of skill in swimming. We've seen recent incidents where children drown. So basically, learning how to swim is important, and learning how to swim, even for going to the beach or to the river or to the dam, even with family members or with friends and people that you trust, you still need to learn how to swim so that an accident doesn't take place. So most driving, drowning, and flash flood accidents can be prevented. So you can prevent these accidents by only driving when you have a driver's license. For instance, a lot of us will drive when we're teenagers, even though we know that we're not allowed to drive. And then basically, even drowning can be prevented by swimming where there are lifeguards and swimming where there are parents and learning how to swim. So we can avoid those things by making sure that we are knowledgeable in those areas and that we are skilled in those areas. So personal safety is the slide that we're on. First bullet point, Personal safety means that you are aware of your environment, that you are educated to make responsible decisions about how you behave, that you treat others with respect and ensure that you're treated with respect by others. So, knowing the environment that you're in, meaning you will be aware of whether you're in a positive environment or a negative environment. So, what you would need to do is maybe check your age restrictions. If you're not supposed to be in a club when you're under 18, then you make sure that you're not in that space because you're underage and it won't be safe for you. There are lots of predators and there are lots of people who target young girls or young men in clubs. So basically, if you're not supposed to be somewhere, then it means that it is unsafe for you. Maybe being out at night without your parents or being out at night without a guardian or someone to look over you, and going to places where you don't have permission to go to. So you might have to ask for permission from your parents to go where you want to go to, and maybe have an adult, maybe an older cousin accompany you. So you must also know when you're not safe. If someone is making you uncomfortable by saying things that make you uncomfortable or passing remarks, then you know that you need to get out of a place as soon as possible. So and then that you treat others with respect and ensure that you're treated with respect by others. So remember, if you treat others with respect, they're most likely to reciprocate and treat you with respect too. So second bullet point, you need skills to set boundaries in situations that make you uncomfortable or feel threatened. So if you are in a situation that makes you uncomfortable or feel threatened, you need to know what to do. For instance, a skill that you can learn how to do is have a an emergency number for when you are caught up in a situation that you feel is unsafe or uncomfortable with. You need to maybe know the lines that you can call. You need to know the police number or a security number. You need to know what to do when you are in a place that you're uncomfortable with, and then letting people know where you're going before you go. So before you leave the house, you're not just gonna go without telling your parents or go without telling your sister, because people do get abducted. We have very high trafficking rates, human trafficking stats. So you might want to tell someone before you leave your home and before you go to a place that you're not used to. So setting boundaries is also about choosing the kinds of friends that you go with. You don't want friends that don't respect their parents, friends that already abuse alcohol and substances at the age that you're at. So you might want to check your friends, whether you have bad friends or good friends. So you'll check who you're going with. And then you'll check the age group of the people that you're with. Some of us hang out with people who are way older than us. So it is sometimes best to hang out with your peers, people who are your age, because you'll think alike with them. Because they're at your age, they won't influence you into doing things that you're not ready to do. And then road use. In South Africa, most of these deaths occur while walking, riding on bicycles, using motorcycles, or public transport. The majority of adolescents in cars do not use their seat belt, and some driving are driving underage. So accidents do occur while walking. So it means as a pedestrian, if you're someone who doesn't have a car or you're not driving, you might be crossing the road. You need to be careful and you need to know the rules of being a pedestrian, what to do, how to cross the robot, and there are lots of accidents where people get knocked over by cars because they don't know the rules of being a pedestrian. And then riding on bicycles, maybe you'll need to ride in designated areas, maybe in parks or in areas that have cycling lanes. So I do know that there are areas with cycling lanes, so you might want to stick to those areas, and you wouldn't want to go onto highways and roads that are busy or that have speed limits that are higher, like 120 or 150. So you might want to ride your bicycle in safer places where there's less traffic, or just within your complex or estate. So using motorcycles or public transport, now you need to make sure if you're going to use the motorcycle that you've been trained to do so. You have the valid license for using your motorcycle. So it's not only cars that you get licenses for. So you also need to make sure you've got your license for your motorcycle. And then all public transport. What you can do is don't allow the taxi to be full or to be over, to have more people than what it's supposed to have. For instance, if the taxi is supposed to be 14 people seated, and then maybe you're number 16, you find the taxi full, and then you still want to go in. If there is a situation like that, then you would rather go down the taxi and not be in it, because then you might have a car accident and the taxi had too many people, or if there is a situation where people have to report the taxi, what you can do is you can make notes of the registration number of the taxi or the bus that you're using. If it's a bus, you still won't go onto a bus that has a lot of people standing up and people at the door. So you can always take the registration of the taxi or the bus or whatever mode of transport you're using, and just report them at the correct associations, and just make sure that you can also contact the police, metro police in your area, and just make sure that you are safer and that other people are safer using the mode of transport. The majority of adolescents in cars do not use their seatbelts, and some are driving underage. So this we see a lot. People don't want to use seatbelts for whatever reason. Maybe it's not cool to use your seatbelt, and it's cooler to be with the rest of the people who don't feel seatbelts offer them. But seatbelts will make sure that when you're in an accident that you're safe, and that you don't get hurt as much as you would get hurt if you weren't wearing a seat belt. So such things have been tested. So they wouldn't just say seat belts are safer if that wasn't tested. So, and then driving underage, a lot of us are tempted because they cars at home to just drive over maybe to the garage or to the mall with your parents' cars, sometimes without them knowing. So it is not cool to drive underage. You must wait for 18 and to get your learners and your drivers before driving. You don't want to get involved in an accident, and for lawmakers, maybe metro police or of traffic officers to find out that you're driving underage and that you don't have a license, because then you will be charged with culpable homicide or murder for injuring maybe the people or killing someone in that accident. You will be the one at fault. So you do want to make sure that you use your seatbelt and that you aren't driving over age. You are going to wait for the right age to drive and the correct training, and you wait for an adult to help you out and someone who's more experienced in driving to mentor you and show you how best to do it. And then the use of substances. So, substance use and abuse. Alcohol use causes long-term health problems and has a negative impact on people's social lives when they are not able to keep jobs or look after their families. So basically, what happens is that alcohol does have a negative impact on social lives. People behave differently when they're under the influence of alcohol. It affects their relationships. So some people become violent when they are under the influence of alcohol. They are most likely to behave violently and maybe beat their wives. As you know, we have a problem with gender-based violence in South Africa and probably in other parts of the world too. So where you find that people are beating up their wives and children. So what happens is that a lot of these people are on substances or are under the influence. So it does alcohol and substance abuse does alter your behavior. So if you want to behave in a more sober manner and be sober towards your family members, you might not want to be addicted to any substance. So when they are not able to keep jobs too, so some people, when they abuse alcohol, they aren't able to go to their jobs, even if every day they absent themselves from their jobs. So you find that they don't go to work on Friday, and then they don't go to work on Monday too, which means that they are taking long weekends every weekend, and sometimes they go to work drunk, which means that you won't be as effective as you are when you're sober. You'll break the rules because in some workplaces you can't, in a lot of workplaces, you actually can't come to work drunk. And then you won't be as competent as you are when you're drunk. You will not be able to carry out your duties the way you would carry them out when you are sober. So, and then looking out for your families, looking after your families. If a breadwinner, whether male or female, the provider in the family is a substance abuser, then it will affect most of the time the way you handle your finances. You might just find yourself buying more alcohol and supporting your addiction, and then spending less on taking care of your family, making sure they have their basic needs met, like providing shelter and providing food and water and making sure they have clothes. So most of the time when you abuse substances, what happens is that you spend money on trying to feed your addiction. Then you won't be able to take care of your family's needs. So that behavior will affect the quality of your family. And then the second bullet point, it is also the most commonly used substance in South Africa, and that is alcohol. Alcohol reduces self-control and increases the likelihood of accidents and risky behaviors. So a lot of accidents that people get into on the road, you find that people are drunk, and then people have had a lot more to drink than what they're supposed to have had according to the law. And then risky behaviors are maybe getting into fights, being violent, and fights that you would never have gotten into if you were sober. And then doing things like, there are a lot of freak accidents that happen when people are drunk. Things like swimming, diving into pools, pushing other people into pools. So those are things that happen most of the time when people are drunk and they're not thinking straight. And then sexual behavior. When teenagers become sexually aware, they may be tempted to experiment. They risk unplanned pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. This has a negative impact on their physical and mental health because the choices they have to make or the situations they find themselves in. So it's always important to wait until you're ready before you involve yourself in things that maybe you need to put off until you're an adult so that you can avoid things like unplanned pregnancy and getting sick. So it's always advisable to wait until you finish school. Don't be in too much of a hurry to start dating. Finish school, get your degree, and then you'll be able to have healthy relationships. So the risk of pregnancy. The majority of teenagers giving birth are from developing countries. Developing countries are countries that still have to find their feet economically. They're in a phase where they're growing, and where they're growing economically, they're not yet first world countries like America and the UK and Australia. Those are developed countries. So these are countries that are still trying to make things work. So the majority of teenagers in these countries are involved in getting pregnant whilst they're still teenagers. Teenage mothers are more at risk of dying from pregnancy related causes, meaning that your body is not yet ready to give birth. So you might want to wait until your body is mature enough to give birth, because when you get pregnant when you're a teenager, then you might be in danger of passing away because your body is not yet ready. Young mothers usually drop out of school to look after their children, so therefore influencing future employment opportunities. So in a lot of communities, people place a taboo on women carrying on with their studies whilst they're pregnant and after they give birth. So it's seen as something to be ashamed of and something that you should be embarrassed of when you're pregnant. So they are made to stop going to school. And also the same thing as after they give birth, they're expected now to be full-time mothers and not go back to school. Their only duty should be to take care of their children. So you find that they drop out, and some of them literally have to stay home because that is their reality, that there's no one to take care of the child. Maybe there aren't any parents and there aren't any grandparents. So you find that they have to drop out to take care of their child. And most of the time, maybe the young boy or the man that they had the child with carries on with their life. They carry on going to work, and some might not also be involved in their children's life. So basically, having a child whilst you're a teenager might affect your life because you might not be able to finish school, which obviously you can change right now. Perceptions have changed. So you can continue with school and you can continue to build your future and just build your career, finishing school and going to varsity whilst you have a child, and therefore influencing future employment. So if lots of women drop out because they're pregnant as teenagers, then it means we have less women in the workplace and we have more women at home. So if you find yourself in a situation, or someone that you know finds themselves in a situation where they're pregnant as a teenager, then you should be encouraged to go back to school, because you can still finish school and you can still provide for your child after going to varsity and finding a job. And then teenage suicides. Suicide is one of the main causes of death in young people. About 20% of teenagers suffer mental problems each year, mostly depression and anxiety. Those who experience violence, humiliation, and poverty are more at risk. So, suicide is a form of mental wellness issue. So if you feel suicidal, you do have to see a professional, maybe see a counselor or a psychologist. And if you can't afford a psychologist or a counselor, then you will use public services. Clinics do have social workers, and there are social workers at different departments of social development. There should be one in your area. And then you can just book and speak to a counselor or social worker about how you feel. If not, don't keep secrets from your parents. You can tell your parents so that they can support you, so you don't have to close yourself in your room. You can share with your parents or your older brother or someone that you feel safe speaking to. Maybe it's someone from church, a youth leader, a youth pastor, or your pastor. You can just tell them how you feel, and then basically they will help you out. So there's no need to keep quiet and suffer silently. If you feel suicidal, then you need to speak to someone. And then those who experience violence, so most of the time, people who commit suicide have experience of violence of some sort. Maybe that is abuse from your parents, abuse from your uncles, or from just people that you stay with, friends, or anyone from the community. So if you've experienced violence, you need to speak to someone, or you need to contact the police so that they can support you. Maybe tell your parents or someone that you feel safe speaking to, but you need to speak to someone, or you need to contact the police so that you can resolve. Is maybe bullying, whether it's cyberbullying or bullying at school, or where you're just forced to, someone makes you feel ashamed of your situation at home or at school, or someone just wants to embarrass you because they feel that you're less of a person. So when you suffer humiliation, you're most likely to be suicidal. And most of the time, people are not sensitive to each other. So if you're being bullied, then you need to tell your teachers and you need to tell your parents. Don't keep quiet about it. When someone makes fun of you for whatever reason, whether it's body shaming or because of your financial status, maybe you're not able to afford things that other children afford, then what you can do is tell an adult or someone that will be able to help you. And poverty too, so meaning you are less fortunate, maybe you don't have enough meals a day, you don't have clothes, your basic services are not met. Maybe you live at an orphanage, you don't have a beautiful home like other people have in class. So you also need to see a counselor or a teacher. And most of the time, these are people that can help you, maybe tell you like positive stories of people rising from poverty, people who were once poor and homeless, and then worked hard and were able to make it and change their situations around, not only for themselves but also for the generations that come after them, like their children. Your children don't have to suffer the same situations that you suffered. So if you grew up not having enough food or not having enough clothes still, then you make a decision to go to school, study hard, score some good points, and go to varsity, choose a good career, and then get paid enough money to be able to stop the cycle and just take care of your own children and make sure you instill good values so that they also can take care of their children. In that way, you've changed your situation for future generations. So if you're experiencing any one of those things, you can be suicidal about them and you will need to speak to a counselor or a social worker with regards to that situation. So hygiene and dietary behavior. The incorrect diet and lack of exercise have negative consequences on one's health. So you also need to check what you're eating. You may be eating incorrectly and not exercising, and maybe that will cause obesity, and that then you're not able to breathe properly. Maybe you're not able to be positive in life, bad eating habits and just sitting maybe on the couch the whole day might not be that inspiring. You might just want to sit there and eat, and that's all you want to do. That's not healthy at all. So basically, eating the correct diet will also feed your brain positively, and you're most likely to have a positive attitude in life, and then you'll just be an healthy individual. So HIV and AIDS, the World Health Organization confirms that 15 to 24-year-olds performed about 40% of all new HIV infections among adults worldwide in 2008. There are 2,500 more youth who get infected each year. So, meaning the age that you're at right now is a very important age, because that is the age where most people get infected. So there are lots of factors. This is the stage where you're very inquisitive and where you want to test different things. There's also peer pressure, and there are also temptations, but it is always best to wait until you're responsible enough to take part in activities that adults do take part in. So, in order to avoid infections, you might want to avoid relationships that are sexual, so that you will be able to concentrate on your studies and wait until such a time that you are able to be mature enough to be in the kinds of relationships. So, peer pressure. Teenagers are vulnerable because of their need for acceptance by their peers. You may feel pressurized into becoming addicted to using drugs and drinking. So, this is about choosing your friends. Choose the correct friends, so we see where you want to go by your friends. If you want to be a doctor, you might want to hang around people who are dedicated to their schoolwork and get good grades. If you want to be a doctor, you're not going to want to hang out with those learners that bank classes, because when you bank a class, you're probably going to miss out on work and you're not going to know what to do. So what you would want to do is be around friends who influence you positively and who don't like take part in risky behaviors. You want to be part of a group that has a vision and goals and wants to succeed in life, and they're willing to put in the work, the dedication, and the commitment to achieving their goals. And then social economic environment. Socioeconomic refers to the interaction of social and economic factors. They can also impact negatively on your well-being. So socioeconomic economics can impact negatively on your well-being. So this might mean that you're from a poor family, or socially maybe you're being raised by a single parent, or you're only being raised by your grandmother. So your social environment includes issues such as access to water, to electricity, healthcare, and food. You may experience restrictions due to cultural restrictions, due to cultural beliefs. The economic environment involves how much money you have, which also affects the way you live. So not being able to eat 3 meals a day or eating properly means that you might have to go to school on a hungry stomach. Not having shoes to wear might mean that you have to be barefooted or be going to school. Or maybe having to walk long distances to school might mean that you arrive at school tired, and when you get home, you do your homework whilst you're tired and sleep late and not get enough sleep. So, those are social issues that might affect you and affect your lifestyle and behavior. And then, yeah, yes, how much money you have obviously will affect maybe how you study. Some children don't have money for textbooks, don't have money for study guides. So you might not feel that you have enough study material to get you through. So you can always speak to your teachers and your principal, maybe the psychologist or social worker that works at your school, and they will be able to help you out, maybe to get school uniform, to get you part of the feeding scheme at school, or you'll be able to get uniforms from the uniforms that have been left over by other matriculants. So it's always good to consult your teachers and make sure that you use psychologists and social workers that are provided by the government if you are not able to have access to one because of finances. So what I need you to do for me is name the kinds of risky behaviors and situations that you can do as a teenager and what the dangers are. This is just so that you know, basically. It's not a test of any sort. It's just so that to make sure that you know what we covered in the lesson. So name the kind of risky behaviors and situations that you can do as a teenager and what the danger is with them. And then this is a summary. Certain behaviors and situations impact negatively on your personal safety because they lead to serious consequences. Teenagers often take part in risky behaviors which harm their well-being. Irresponsible road use, such as drinking and driving, speeding and disobeying the rules of the road, the use and abuse of alcohol and other substances, which can lead to risky sexual behavior and is frequently associated with acts of violence, unsafe sexual practices leading to unplanned pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, and HIV/AIDS, anxiety or depression, which may lead to teenage suicide, neglecting hygiene or not eating a proper diet, and giving in to peer pressures. Those are the things that are listed there are negative behaviors that have a negative impact on your lifestyle. So that is the lesson for today. And you can please join me for tomorrow's lesson at 3 o'clock, and then we will be continuing with Chapter 11, Unit 3. And you're welcome to contact Africa Teen Gigs and follow them at Africa Teen Gigs on all social media platforms. And remember that you can always get me on my email, which I put up on the first slide, Litika Puleng at yahoo.com. That is where you can get me. So, yes, that is where you will find me. Okay, thank you for joining the lesson. See you tomorrow.